already the 17th day of February 2012. And we've got Greg Palast, BBC investigative journalist, with huge breaking news on a host of military fronts, economic fronts, web censorship fronts, and the inside scoop on News Corps, obviously being blackmailed and controlled by the Obama deception operation. Suddenly you're seeing a lot of Obama worship over at News Corps, and Sky TV's now suddenly worshiping the Labour Party over in England because they've got the prosecutors ready to drop the hammer on all of them. They just arrested 8 more News Corps people last week. So this could be the end of News Corps as we know it, unless they basically become current TV and hire Al Gore on their board. And I'm not joking. You may see stuff like that. So this may be the only way the globalist liberal arm of the New World Order can actually get viewers, is to actually have a hostile intelligence operation takeover of News Corps through blackmail. Of course, News Corps has got plenty of dirt on the left arm of the New World Order that they're part of, but there is infighting inside the system. The Founding Fathers said over and over again, the one thing that'll stop tyranny, there's 2 things: a vigilant, active population with a Republican form of government. A republic doesn't mean Republican Party if you're a new listener. Every time I say Republican form of government, they go, how dare you say a Republican government only? That's not what we're talking about. Side issue. The point is that you need an active, awake, informed, involved population that defends liberty aggressively. But you've also, in this fight, on top of that, need to understand there's a separation of powers so that the power structure is always busy fighting with itself over the power, so you can't get one centralized dictator-type guy in total, full control. All right, continuing here, let me just go over some of the headlines, and then it's Friday. I'm just going to open the phones up instead of just ranting off into oblivion over all of this news. Let me just start here. Conservatives and enthusiasts cheer the end of the long gun registry in Canada. National Post. Now, Canadians a decade ago said when they pass this, they're going to use it for gun confiscation. And indeed, they would just come confiscate legal collections of firearms, trumping up reasons. It's been all over their news. And so now the long gun registry is gone, not the handgun registry. But the long gun registry has been overturned. And again, we're having overall victories against the social engineers. They're still taking over infrastructure and have the high ground politically and with their printing presses of fiat money, but they morally have the low ground. And that's why I've seen the polls roughly go from 50% or so for restricting the Second Amendment in the 70s and 80s to now some polls as high as 80% want less gun laws. They understand it's about victim disarmament. The government can't and won't protect you. I've seen numbers, you can pull these up, where back in the 70s, right around 60% of people or so, depending on which study, were for abortion. They've been sold it's not a human and it's no big deal and it's trendy and cool and a civil right. And the lies that, well, if it's to save the woman's life, shouldn't you have an abortion? It's not called an abortion. It's called a medical procedure if it's to save the woman's life, okay? More lies, more deception. Nobody's not going to go in and do a procedure. Unfortunately, the baby dies over the mother, okay? That's always been the way it is in just modern medicine. But now it's upwards of 75, 80% are against abortion. You can just type that in, tide turns, America now anti-abortion, especially in young people. The numbers are in the 90s in some cases. So there's been a total flipping. People are anti-gun grabbing now, anti-gun control. They're for controlling the gun in their hand, real gun control. They're anti-abortion. They're anti-UN. They're anti-globalist. See, the globalists were able to take over America through traitor media, by owning the media. They were able to slowly brainwash people, twist things, sell things. But the fad's over. Honeymoon's over. Honeymoon's over. I mean, in Canada, despite the globalists in control of that parliament, the Queen suspending their parliament 3 times in the last 4 years and all of it, over things like this, they have now overturned the major gun registry. Boom! Victory. This is a big deal. You know, you remember 3 years ago when the Copenhagen document got leaked, and it was for world government. They were trying to get it passed without the third world seeing it. In one day, all this came out in the internal emails of the UN, fixing the numbers globally, and we've got to hide this fraud, and it's all about reducing population, and all the eugenics boards. I had the guys go buy champagne, and we literally drank an $80 bottle of champagne in here, which is a lot for, you know, around here, folks. And I mean, and I said, you know what? I mean, after the show, I actually, and I'm not saying you should celebrate with alcohol, but it was like I just won the Indy 500. All of us did. I drove to the store, got a bottle of champagne, and went home with my wife. And we had that bottle of wine. I mean, I just, it's so good. We can do it. I just start feeling so good when I think about it. We can beat these people, ladies and gentlemen. I know we can, and people haven't learned that yet, but they're starting to. And in the understanding that we can win and we've got strength is the victory. In the understanding of how strong we are, we can win. I mean, I know a lot of you are like, why has this guy just got tears in his eyes? You know, involuntarily, over going back to that moment. It's because you get excited when your team wins the Super Bowl or the playoffs. I've seen grown men get just like I did, and coaches cry. I mean, back when I was a teenager, I'd cry when the Cowboys won. You know, get a tear in my eye of happiness while we were high-fiving, you know, at a barbecue. That's a simulation of what real humanity is. I get an endorphin rush just going back to watching that enemy Death Star blow up. And I told you that was going to reverse their entire environmental eugenics movement. And it's been a major wedge into their operation. It has been devastating, and they admit it. Al Gore is now a joke, his own people running from him. I mean, it's a devastating win. Man, savor that. A devastating victory. Now, this isn't as big as that, but it's another signpost. Even though Canada is so rigged, just like our system, still there's freedom. It was a victory when the head Rothschild got caught being a puppet master over Russian oligarchs and major British government officials. He sued trying to say it wasn't true, and the suit reversed, and it all came out, and there was still, even in some of the most rigged courts in the world, when it comes to libel, strongest libel laws in the world, the judge said, you were deceptive and got caught. I read part of the ruling here on air. You lied to us. You filed a bad suit. You are a puppet master. Boom, devastating. The globalists don't want us to have confidence, and I'm telling you, it's a lie that we can't turn this around. As bad as this New World Order is, as out of control, as many people are asleep and brain damaged by the globalist propaganda and poison in the food and water and the rest of it, when you finally get wise to the scam, no matter how big and sophisticated, it just doesn't float anymore. And their boat's got more holes in it every day. And that's why I still get so angry at the mainstream media that are a bunch of teleprompter reading Decepticons sitting there lying to people and posing and their big, giant, slick studios. We could do the exact same thing. I guess maybe we should, just to make a point. And the fact that still with some people, if you're wearing a fancy suit and tie and reading off a teleprompter and looking like you have the perfect diction and eloquence, but you're reading a script, that even after the dinosaur media has imploded to about 10% of what it was 20 years ago, they still have that air of being the establishment. And when that domino falls, it's over. And they're already trying to segue. They're already dispatching establishment people into cyberspace, into internet news, as that becomes the total platform, to try to replace the true alternative media as they begin to censor and shut all of us down. And just a side issue, and I apologize because it's not even worthy of discussion, but the Young Turks, which means kind of a secret society, a luminous group that actually took over Turkey, kind of an anti-Islamicist group. That's, I guess, why they use that name. I mean, it's good, kind of a Ford Foundation, Media Matters, Al Gore funded deal. I mean, it's like kind of a joke in everybody's face. And that's where that name comes from. I just saw some video where they were saying they're the #1 news show on the internet in the world. And I said, if you look at Alexa And if you look at all of our internet traffic and streams and podcasts and all of our YouTube channels, we dwarf them, and a bunch of other people dwarf them. And, I mean, Glenn Beck's bigger than they are on the internet. WorldNet Daily, I mean, the list goes on and on. I said it's not true because I'm sick of Al Gore dispatching some people that show Hollywood clips all day and then call that news and then say they're bigger than people when with hardcore info, we're beating the establishment media and the establishment spin-off counterfeit alternative media with real hardcore news. That says the people are hungry for truth. That says the awakening is winning. That's an attack on all of us to say this show is at number one. Number one in full spectrum alternative media. Drudge is indisputed number one in old line media, alternative media, and agenda setting. There's just nothing compared to it. And the system attacks him every day, saying it's wrong. He shouldn't be able to set the agenda. Because he does. More than New York Times, Twitter, Facebook, all of them combined, the actuaries have been done. And I'm just stating facts here, okay? We're number one. That means you're number one. That means we're winning. We're winning. And more and more I realize the fact that we're winning needs to be trumpeted. So we're going to start publishing more of these numbers, going over it, pointing it out, so you know the victories you're having. I want you to email, I want you to Facebook, I want you to Twitter out Infowars.com to everybody. The more they try to censor us, the more we got to fight back. And suddenly you're seeing a lot of Obama worship over at News Corp, and Sky TV's now suddenly worshiping the Labour Party over in England. Because they've got the prosecutors ready to drop the hammer on all of them. They just arrested 8 more News Corp people last week. So this could be the end of News Corp as we operation takeover of News Corp through blackmail. Of course, News Corp's got plenty of dirt on the left arm of the New World Order that they're part of. But there is infighting inside the system. The Founding Fathers said over and over again, the one thing that'll stop tyranny, there's 2 things, a vigilant, active. It is already the 17th day of February 2012. And we've got Greg Palast, BBC investigative journalist, with huge breaking news on a host of military fronts, economic fronts, web censorship fronts, and the inside scoop on News Corp, obviously being blackmailed and controlled by the Obama deception operation. Know it. Unless they basically become current TV and hire Al Gore on their board. And I'm not joking. You may see stuff like that. So this may be the only way the globalist liberal arm of the New World Order can actually get viewers, is to actually have a hostile intelligence operation.